Hey, and welcome to the Megan Waldrop podcast. I'm Megan. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm so happy to hang out with you again. And if you're new here, pull up a chair, join our crew, and we're going to get down to business talking about the human experience and how we can, ways that we can help improve ourselves to not only improve our lives, but just our day-to-day lives. We don't have to wait till the weekend or some vacation to have a relaxing time and actually feel centered. It's figuring out ways that we can do this day to day, moment by moment, if needed, because life happens and it's a beautiful, challenging, and rewarding cycle if we're able to allow ourselves to really feel into it. And not in a scary way, but in a way that we feel that we're just kind of a witness to this whole thing. So that's what I want to talk about today is we don't need an hour to feel better, and I'm saying that this episode is inspired by a section in my free guide. It's called the Breathing Room Toolkit, and it's packed with simple 1 minute resets you can use when life feels overwhelming or whenever you may need it. And you can download it through the link in the show notes. So I want to start with a question and ask, have you ever noticed how we tend to believe wellness has to be complicated? We think we need an hour-long morning routine, and believe me, I've been there. We think we need a silent retreat, and yes, I'd love to go on one. We feel like we need the perfect meditation practice, which in itself is a this contradiction. No perfection in meditation or in life. Or we need the right supplements or the right planner or the right schedule. I am I have been a victim slave, if you will, to some of all of these at one point in my life. And it's like we convince ourselves sometimes that if we don't do all of these things that we're going to be stuck. And I'll share a personal story. There it was about 2 years ago, and my husband, many of you know, many of you, if you don't, my husband was a commercial fisherman for 10 years of our relationship. And I was the fisherman's partner, which was very challenging. And during that time, I founded a worldwide support community for partners of commercial fishermen to come together and support each other through these challenging day to day seasons that were happening all around the world. And it was kind of like a military wife support group, but for fishermen's partners. And so a year before my husband Chris wanted to sell the business, I knew it was coming, and I didn't know what that meant for me or what that meant for the community or personally. My identity was so tied to it. I wasn't sure what that meant for our finances. What were we going to do next? We both didn't have a clear direction on what was going to be next. We just knew that selling the business was going to be the next big step. So for us, selling the business was selling the boat, selling all of the traps, all the trap building gear, the ropes, the nitty gritty that takes to run a commercial fishing business. And believe me, there's a lot of nitty gritty, and it's literally gritty AF. And during that time, I was also contemplating ending a 20 plus year friendship. And I wasn't really sure how to go about this because my I guess my responsibility in that feeling of needing to end it was that I wasn't speaking up for myself and I wasn't really standing up for myself when I realized that this friendship didn't really feel supportive all the time. It actually felt like I was just a witness, and honestly I was entertained by it. It was entertaining. And also of course we had great times and things like that, but things had come up in that moment that I just felt like it just didn't feel supportive anymore and our values were different. And so I was wondering how to approach that as someone who was not big into confrontation. And the other big thing that was going on in my life was that I had quit smoking and ingesting marijuana, THC, any CBD, whatever is out there. I realized that it just didn't serve me. And after 10 years, it was almost 10 years at that point of not drinking alcohol, I had switched to marijuana because I thought that was going to help ease me off of the alcohol, which it did, but it just turned into another addiction. So if I'm just saying, if you have an addictive personality like I do, don't, do your best not to change one addiction to the other because it's just more challenging at the end because you're still going to have to deal with that addiction regardless of what it is. Of course, do whatever you got to do to get by and to move on from one to the other if you need that. But I'm just speaking from experience. If there was something I could do differently, it would definitely have not put so much time, money, and effort into finding weed. I mean, this was back in the day when it wasn't legal and I lived in California and it was still medical. And it was like finding the dealer. Does the guy have any weed left? Or I was out on the East Coast and calling my weed dealer in the East Coast. I mean, it's just friggin' exhausting trying to figure out where, when, how much do I have left? Like, how am I going to get this into the show, like concert, whatever. If you know, you know. So I was dealing with some three major for me life changes. It was a possible career shift, well, definitely for my partner, a friendship that had been like a sister to me for over 20 years, and then an addiction that had also been like a partner to me for longer than I'd like to admit. And during that time, I had a lot of challenging issues around the money mindset too. And tying my value to money and just the things that we are conditioned to do in our society at times, and to show that our worth is tied to our wealth. And how do we even define wealth? What does that even mean? Does it mean money? What about the love in our lives? What about the ability to wake up every day with an able body? Like, how do I redefine wealth? So this is what I was going through at that moment. And so at that time, I had meditated. I've done my meditation practice in the morning, but I really wanted to ramp it up big time. So in the mornings before I ramped it up, I would wake up. I mean, like clockwork, I would wake up, I would practice physical therapy exercises that I needed to do. Then I would practice yoga and then I would meditate. So this was my routine. Well, in addition to the physical therapy and yoga, I was starting to meditate about 45 minutes to an hour every single day. And it was with a guided meditation. And I said, I'm going to give myself at least 6 months and do this, or I'm going to try to see if I could do this for a year. And so at first it felt great. Like it was really helpful for me because it felt like I could really ground myself and get into more of that state of I mean, yeah, getting excited about being with myself and just saying, okay, what's going to happen in this meditation today? What's going to happen? Which also is a contradiction because that's not how you're supposed to, you know, go about meditating, is to have any expectations whatsoever. But I needed it at that time. And so, but what I get caught up with is that I get stuck into this mindset of, if I don't do the certain things, that my day is going to be ruined, or I've ruined my path. And I mean, just doom and gloom. I mean, it was just so hard on myself. I would get so hard on myself if I didn't do these routines the way that I had done it at times. And so yeah, at first it was great because, new things can be really exciting. But then after a while, I just felt like, oh my gosh, my morning routine is now 2 hours long. So I was waking up at 5, and then at 7, I could start my day. And it didn't feel as supportive as it used to feel. At one point, I needed that routine to get me through the day, to feel like I was being productive. But at this point, I'll say 6 months in, maybe 8 months in, I was starting to feel like it was just too much. Like it almost felt like I was putting myself in a cage and I wasn't allowing myself to really feel the effects of what I've been putting out there for myself. And it wasn't until I went to Bali and I sat with a meditation teacher who had studied at an ashram in India for 10 years. I always love learning from different meditation teachers because there's so many different ways you can meditate. There's no wrong way to meditate. There are many, 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 many practices. And it was so fascinating to learn from him that he meditates 40 minutes a day. He doesn't use a timer. He just automatically, his body clicks into it. But he said, just 10 minutes a day. If you can sit with yourself for 10 minutes, that will have exponential effect on your well-being. And I thought, wow, that sounds supportive. Like that feels good. And oh my gosh, am I doing this correctly? Going back into, the ego starting to spin. Like, am I actually going to get the benefits? Am I really helping myself here? But I thought, you know what? I'm going to just try this 10 minutes a day. And it felt way more accessible to me, especially when I was traveling. I was traveling a lot at the time, and I could do that 10 minutes and feel like I could really get in there. And so it was really eye-opening to me to have somebody tell me who was well versed in meditation and who had studied in a different type of meditation practice with more of the Hindu tradition. I began my meditation journey with the Buddhist tradition. Shambhala is the name of the tradition. And I had amazing meditation teachers in California, and I'd go every Wednesday and we'd sit for 20 minutes as a group. We'd do a walking meditation for 10 minutes, then we'd sit for another 20 minutes. And then afterwards, we'd have snacks and we'd discuss different topics. And I love, love, love them. They're still dear friends of mine today. And it's so curious that just learning from somebody else who studied in a different type of meditation way and more of a Hindu uh, practice, like 10 minutes. And he was so like, it's fine. He was like, don't worry about it. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. That's literally what we're not trying to do here. Like, that's the opposite of why we're sitting here doing this right now. And I loved it because it made me realize that our nervous systems don't require perfection because that's inachievable anyway. The biggest shift is knowing that they just require safety. They just require these small moments that we give ourselves. So if you think about it, if you're anxious, your nervous system doesn't need a 3 day vacation, even though we might say that we need that. And hey, that sounds great, right? But it's just evident that we're okay now and we can help ourselves calm in that moment. So it can be something as simple as taking a slow breath in through the nose and out through the nose, breathing in through the nose, filling up your belly, and exhaling out the nose. Let's do it again because it feels so good. Inhale through the nose and fill the belly. And exhale out through the nose. I mean, just that one slow breath just now really just made that internal shift for me. I wonder how it felt for you. It's just all we need is some simple moment like that. Also putting our feet on the floor, grounding. You can take your shoes off, put them in the grass if it's available to you, but just even feeling your feet on the ground, just as simple as that. Taking our energy and awareness away from what's going on inside of our heads, what's swirling on inside of our heads, and putting that energy and focus down to our feet on the ground. Like, what is that like? What about putting that energy down? A lot of times we think we meditate, it's about like seeking upward, seeking upward this, the spirits, the God, the universe, everything is up, up, up. But what about that energy and that power that we have when we are also just connecting to our ground, our humanness into the earth? It can be as simple as taking an intentionally sip of water, like take a sip of water, or even looking out the window, taking a sip of water and maybe taking a little breath, just actually looking out at the trees or any kind of whatever's outside of your window, or even stepping outside for 60 seconds. Step outside, do a little stretch and a bend, and come on back in. It's just these simple ways that that it compounds over time for us. We think wellness only counts if it's big. We think that if we accidentally miss these big moments that we're not getting the full effects. But actually, when we accidentally overlook the small actions, those are the small actions that form that foundation of resilience. Those are the small actions that are actually we can integrate into our day without even thinking twice, really. We can be like, okay, if you're taking a few conscious breaths or even conscious sips or looking out the window throughout the day, that is going to make such a difference overall for your well-being than going to be like, oh my gosh, all right, do I have time to go meditate for an hour or go get a salt bath or a sound bath? Which hell yeah, those all are amazing, but sometimes we can't do that every day. Sometimes we're not able to have access to those amazing different types of modalities, but we do have access to our breath and we do have access to just having that awareness of, whoa, okay, I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I feel that I'm getting really, really hard on myself and I'm really, really overthinking. What can I do in this moment to to help me, and the problem is that, most people think they just don't know what to do. And they think that what they do isn't enough, but enough is exactly where the healing starts, where that grounding starts. And that's when I started to do my morning exercises. I switched it up. I was like, okay, I'm going to try my meditations for 10 to 20 minutes a day. I'm not going to sit for my 45 an hour meditation and hope that I have a kundalini experience every time, because that's such a setup for disappointment. By the way, like, you're not supposed to be high all the time. And believe me, I've learned that you're not supposed to be high all the time, because eventually it's not going to work anymore. Also, that's not the point of the experience. So I wake up in the morning. So this is my routine now. I wake up in the morning, I practice either breath work in the morning or meditation, depending. And I work out at the Y now. So I'll go to the Y and I'll go to a class and I'll actually do like a 45-minute training, which I really enjoy because it's more social. And I've realized that I've missed that social aspect. And I'll either do breath work in the morning before that, or I'll do it while I'm on a walk. So there's different breath work techniques you can do while walking to help build your lung capacity. And you want to build that lung capacity because after the age of 30, your lungs start to shrink more. And so we want to make sure that they're more vital. They're still working. They're still able to take nice deep breaths, because we can talk about this in a different episode, but bigger lung capacity equates to longevity, is to having that capacity to take in these beautiful inhales through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose, building up that beautiful lung capacity so you can keep stretching those lungs, keeping them strong for the rest of your life. And we can do that just basic exercises. And what I really appreciated about just dialing down the meditation a little bit and having more awareness about these small moments is that it allowed things to integrate and allowed things to settle. And sometimes I do sit for longer if I need to, or if I feel like I want to practice yoga at home and do the Y another time, whatever. I'm now more flexible with myself, and I'm not so ingrained that, oh my gosh, if I don't do this one thing like this every single day, that I just threw everything, all of my effort out the window. I don't think that anymore. I might have those thoughts creep up, but then I realized, no, that doesn't serve me anymore. It did at a time. I needed that discipline. I needed that discipline to help me not smoke weed. I needed that discipline to help me feel more centered when I had this hard conversation with my friend. And I needed that discipline to help ground me when I realized, okay, what is this next step for my business? What is this next step for my identity, and how we're going to move forward as a couple, but also just for myself. So these simple moments, it's a breathing practice, just a simple in through the nose, out through the nose before a difficult conversation. And I definitely did that before I had this conversation with my friend. It's having a moment of calm before speaking, just having a moment of breathing. I breathed, I had took 3 deep breaths before I started this podcast, for example, because sometimes I'll just go into it and I'm like, whoa, I get so excited that I'm talking to you that I I just start to feel like I'm swirling and my mind's kind of hard to bring back to a focus of what my topic of conversation is. So now I integrate just 3 breaths before I even start a podcast. Oh, this one's so good. Even pausing during grief. And that was the last episode I talked about the 49 days that has helped me get through my uncle's loss. So the grieving my uncle. And just pausing during that time and realizing that it's okay to feel sad, and it's okay that if I feel tired, because my emotions have been all over the place, and trying to figure out and navigate life with this loss, and to just be like, it's okay, Megan, you're allowed to feel and not feel at times, and you're allowed to not perform at your 100%. It's not, that's not what this is about. This is about that deep personal work, and integrating and loving and feeling all the emotions that you need to feel at the moment that you need them. Or even just the simple resets during uncertainty. I have some really good ones in the breathing room toolkit. So check the link for sure. But I often hear people when I do breathwork sessions and I work with corporate wellness and breathwork programs and things like that. I often hear people say, I don't have time, or, I just don't see how I can fit this in. And I get it because I mean, I get it. We're busy. A lot of people are overwhelmed. But instead of asking, you know, how do I find an hour? Just start asking, what can I do in the next 60 seconds? Just 60 seconds. That question changed everything for me because almost everyone has 60 seconds. And for me, I felt, wow, 60 seconds, I can do this. Or even just a few breaths. Like, actually, just a few breaths is about 60 seconds, y'all. Isn't that interesting? If you take 3 deep breaths, depending on your pace, that's all you need is 60 seconds. So I want to reflect back to you, and, with everything that's going on in your life right now, I want to just reflect back that you're doing better than you think. I just want you to know that because I know sometimes we feel like we're behind and we don't realize how far we have come. So I just want to pause and give you a high five and say you're doing better than you think. And so I want you to think about your day so far, your week so far. And so where do you feel like you've been running on autopilot? Where do you feel like you've been pushing through when you really needed the pause? And what would change if you give yourself just one intentional minute? Now, I want to stop on this too and say, what changed for me too was whenever I was editor of the newspaper and it was just nonstop working all the time and deadlines and calls and ads and you name it, just getting all the pieces together to put a weekly paper together. I would sometimes forget to eat. I would sometimes not go to the bathroom when I needed to because I felt like I didn't have time. It's like, what are we doing? Like, go to the bathroom, like, eat a snack. These are just the simple things that sometimes slip our minds because we feel like we're so busy. But it's like, man, how much better I perform when I've eaten a snack or had lunch or had taken a second to just go to the bathroom or walk outside. The productivity actually increases because I feel like I'm not sprinting to the finish line and then I just fall over exhausted, running on empty. If you're able to just give yourself that 1 minute whenever you're able, like, what might change for you in that moment? What might change for you in that day? So before this episode ends, I want you to pause and let's do it again. Let's just take one slow breath in through the nose, drop your shoulders and unclench your jaw, exhale through the nose. You can notice your feet touching the ground. Notice what it feels like when you just let your body just settle. And that's it right there, y'all. You just practiced nervous system regulation. We just did it. We just did it several times in this podcast, but that's all it takes. One slow breath, drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, notice your feet touching the ground. And that's it. You did it. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to invite you to download the free guide, The Breathing Room Toolkit. You'll find simple 1 minute practices that can help you feel more grounded, calm, and connected, no matter what the heck is going on around you. And these are the practices I wish I had when I was editor, and the practices I wish I had when I was a fisherman's wife. I mean, these were the things that I needed that I am stoked to shepherd on to you. And I know that some of these practices feel like you've heard them before, and that's great. Absolutely. This is a really, really great simple guide that you can just download, have on your phone, and look at it whenever you want. So the link is in the show notes. And until next time, I want you to remember that you don't need an hour to feel better. Sometimes just 1 minute is enough. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.